family DNA. Since this was a family tomb, it's reasonable to expect that the DNA of some of those entombed would link them to the same family. So even if a DNA linkage is found, it establishes nothing, nada. Certainly it's not enough to disprove the historicity of the entire New Testament. It doesn't begin to discredit all of the corroborating extra-biblical history that has been established for centuries by some of the world's leading scholars. But the most critical point which the filmmakers and the media fail to admit is this. Although they claim to have found DNA in the empty bone boxes, they have nothing with which to compare it. They simply declared that the DNA they found was from Jesus' family. And in fact, they compared the DNA found in the Jesus ossuary with that found in the Mary ossuary. Simply because the two weren't related, they considered that to be proof enough that Jesus married Mary Magdalene. What about a DNA connection between the Jesus and the other Mary? That would at least establish that this Jesus was buried in the same tomb with his mother. But nobody mentioned that particular comparison. I wonder why not. Author Regis Nicoll put it in perspective. He wrote that concluding that this is the burial, the tomb of Jesus of Nazareth, would be like finding a cemetery plot in Britain bearing the names Philip, Elizabeth, Anne, and Margaret, all common British names, and concluding that this must be the British royal family. Actually, the so-called Jesus tomb was discovered in 1980, 27 years ago. At the time of the discovery, each of the 10 ossuaries contained the bones of the original inhabitants. After being examined by leading Israeli archaeologist Amos Kloner, the bones were buried in an unmarked grave in accordance with Israeli antiquities law. The coffins were sent to the Israeli Antiquities Authority in Beit Shemesh, where they languished on the shelf for almost 30 years. Then the filmmakers find in this a hint of a cover-up. The implication is that Israeli authorities suppressed the information because they didn't want to make waves with the Christian community. According to the website Israeli Insider, if it proves true, the discovery could shake up the Christian world as one of the most significant archaeological finds in history. What would it mean if it were true? It would mean that Jesus Christ was not the Son of God. It would mean that he did not die for the sins of mankind. It would mean that he was not the first fruits of the resurrection. In short, it would mean that there is no hope of salvation for the world and that you and I